You're watching an NDTV exclusive. So much has been said about the new government in Tamil Nadu, about MK Stalin's new look team, trying to usher in a new political culture into the politics of Tamil Nadu. And we're joined by somebody who embodies that change, and that is Tamil Nadu's new finance minister, P Thiaga Rajan. He joins me exclusively on NDTV. Now, it's interesting because Mr. Thiaga Rajan is not your conventional politician. He's certainly not a conventional DMK politician. He's somebody who has done an MBA from MIT. He's worked in the private sector. He's worked for Lehman Brothers. He's worked for Stanchart in Singapore. And now he has taken the reins as the finance minister. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Thiaga Rajan, for joining us. And congratulations on being appointed. And as I said, it's not too often that you see somebody with your background getting to be in the hot seat, as it were. Were you surprised at all? Did you see this coming?
No, I think, of course, I'm very grateful. You never take these things for granted. But at some other level, I think my leader has been giving me the opportunity the last 5 years to lead off the budget debate every year at the government, at the assembly. So at some level, I had built up a track record and I had a bunch of data. And so I think it was not entirely unforeseen. But you don't take these things for granted. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Do you at all miss your Lehman Brothers Stanchart days?
Yeah, I think that was so long ago. I've been an opposition MLA for the last 5 years. So, that's the nearest context.
Right.
And relative to being an opposition MLA where neither the data is fully accessible to you, nor do you have the ability to actually make change, then relatively speaking, it's a lot better and a lot more, what can I say, satisfying to be a ruling party MLA and, of course, much more to be a minister in the cabinet.
Okay. Well, you have some wonderful pictures of your family up on Twitter. We'll put some of them up on the screen. I believe you married your classmate in America, Margaret, if I'm not mistaken. I was just curious what she makes of this whole transformation of you becoming a full-time politician and now a minister.
Actually, there's a bit of a joke about that. She's actually quite junior to me. She was doing her master's when I was doing my PhD. I think the author got it a bit wrong. So I joke with her that he either aged her or he made me younger than I really am. So I think, that's a bit funny. But, of course, we met at university and, I think she always knew that I was going to come back to do this. I often make the point that most people have a purpose in life and don't know whether they'll get there. I knew what the end game was and I was trying to find as devious a path to come because, I'm an only child and based on my father and my grandfather, I knew that the path ended here.
Right.
And I tried to do as many things differently and professionally and in as many parts of the world as possible before I came to do this. And so, she knew what the end game was. And she has been very supportive and I couldn't have done this without her, of course.
Is she now a fluent Tamil speaker as well or not yet?
Semi-fluent. Let me say her Tamil is only slightly less than my Hindi. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. Okay, concho as they say. The other interesting paradox that people have commented on is that you are a devout worshipper and you have a very close and long association with the Madurai Amman temple, the beautiful, by the way, Meenakshi temple in Madurai, which is your constituency as well. Explain to us how that fits in with you being a member of a party that claims itself to be staunchly rationalist.
Yeah, I think I've written about this starting 4 or 5 years ago, and I've now talked about it a couple of times, that, our party was more secularist. I think the DK was much more rationalist. If you look at the transition from the Justice Party to the DK to the DMK, the Justice Party was almost all devout followers of religion of some, either Hinduism or some other religion. The DK was very rationalist on the point of verging on atheist. And then the DMK had already come quite
Right.
a long way from that. As Anna said, Ondre Kulam Uruvane Devan. All humanity is one. All gods are one.
Yes.
There's one God, one humanity, one God. And he said, I don't break coconuts, but I don't break idols either. To counter Periyar's, I don't want to break coconuts, but I'll break the idol. So in that sense, we had actually come quite far. And I think my father was the prime example of the fact that, as devout a follower as I am, he was certainly much more practicing devout than I, because I lived overseas for 30 years or 25 years. And he never found a dearth of opportunity or respect or standing in the party all the time. He was an MLA multiple times. He was estimates committee chairman. He was chairman of the cooperative banks.
Yes.
He was a speaker. He was a minister. And, he presided over the house with a big, the dot on his forehead. Now, I don't do this as a kind of, huge custom. I start in the morning like this. Many days I sweat and it comes off. But inevitably I run into somebody who wants to bless me, and they put it, and I accept that. So some days you'll see it's more prominent, some days it's not. This is not intended as a mark of kind of virtuosity.
Right. No, in fact, I don't know how many people know this, but not just your father, you come from a very illustrious political lineage. Your grandfather, I believe, was the chief minister of the Madras presidency. So there's a long history there. But coming to brass tacks now, Mr. Rajan, you are now finance minister, and as all finance minister in today's India, governments are cash strapped, pandemic is on the march, but you also have the legacy of trying to afford your poll promises, and the DMK's big poll promise has been this 4,000 rupee cash support in the time of the pandemic, which I believe has already started going out. How are you going to be able to afford it?
Yeah, I think it helps a lot to have some context of numbers, right? And the great luxury I have, more than anything else in politics, I was first a banker in New York in Wall Street, and traded on the commercial paper desk and the credit derivative desk, where we did, hundreds of billions cash and trillions of notional derivative risk. And then in my role as Snapchat, I was also the global head of money markets, and we raised, tens, well beyond 150 billion dollars in liquidity out of the market. So, numbers are not all the same. You've got to understand the scale of things. So if we look at the 4,000 rupees for about 2 crore, a little over 2 crore cardholders, we're looking at about 8,000 or 9,000 crores. Now, most economists anywhere in the world have told you that during a crisis like this, and during a kind of slowing economy that was pre-crisis, the single best thing you can do is put money in people's hands. If you look at the US, they have put multiple rounds of money into people's hands. So, we are doing the right thing. We're doing what any macroeconomic kind of model or any, right-thinking policy analyst would tell you to do, which is to put cash into the hands of the poorest segments to lift demand back up. In fact, one could argue we're not doing enough of it. But the other is that the scale of this is only about 8,000 or 9,000 crores. Think about the budget of Tamil Nadu is about 3 lakh crores. And the discretionary spending in that is probably, 30, 40, 50,000 crores. And the CAG report and the 15th Finance Commission have already told us that the government of Tamil Nadu, which I have been saying for 4 years, has let revenue slide dramatically to the extent of 60 or 70,000 crores a year. So I have faith that with my leaders' guidance, that we can bring back our revenues to the 10% of GSDP or so that we used to be at all regimes. Ms. Jayalalitha's regime, Talaivar Kalinger's regime. So between 10 and 11% of GSDP means that the state of Tamil Nadu should earn an extra between 65 and 85,000 crores. Now compare that to giving 8,000 crores in subsidies, or a few hundred crores worth of milk price deduction, or a few hundred crores of bus fare reduction. We are not, we are not profligate. We are not irresponsible spenders.
Okay, well, let's see how that plays out, because as you were saying, apart from the 4,000 crores, 4,000 rupees, there's a whole raft of other promises of free handouts that has been promised. But last question to you, sir. A lot of finance ministers in states are quite vexed with the fact that they are owed dues by the center, and all the more at this time. How pressing a problem is that for you?
Of course, in a crisis, the first thing you want to do is shore up liquidity. And so, having these liabilities on your balance sheet or assets that are the liabilities of the central government on your balance sheet gives you some comfort, but it's not nearly as valuable as cash in your bank. So, of course, we want to reduce the dues. Of course, we want to get timely payments. And again, these payments are a big deal to us. They're, a few thousand crores, a couple thousand crores. I've just come from a briefing with the finance department to look at the total outstanding. And, it's not an insignificant sum. It's probably between 10 and 20,000 crores. But relative to the central government's budget or relative to the central government's liquidity, it is not a huge number. Now, of course, some of it is constrained. Some of it may be, timing. But I have faith that, now that we are the government, this is not about politics. This is about people's lives. And for the 8 crore Tamils in Tamil Nadu, we have, 3 really good people with great Tamil intent in their hearts. Ms. Sitaraman is a Tamil who's the finance minister. Mr. Somnathan, who's Tamil, is the finance secretary. And Mr. Das, who was a long-term Tamil Nadu cadre IAS officer, is the RBI governor. So I'm hoping that, they still have that kind of compassion and the spirit in their hearts that they do the right thing.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see if that comes through. But at the moment, it's looking quite strained. But anyway, great to have you on, Mr. Thiaga Rajan. And look, all the very best. It's a big challenge, but it's fascinating that, in a way, the DMK has expanded its ambit, have people like you on board. So great to have you, and thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.